It is the most delicate balancing act in a generation, easing strict social restrictions without a spike in COVID-19 cases. To see how difficult that can be, you only have to look at a country like Singapore, once the poster child of the war against the virus, now facing a second wave of infection.
For weeks, it's been a beacon of light in the war against coronavirus. Tiny Singapore seemed to have slayed the dragon. A fast response with high-tech monitoring of the population. Its leaders gave heartfelt thanks to the people.
Words are not sufficient to express our appreciation for so many Singaporeans going all out to fight the virus. And I just want to say a big thank you to everyone who's doing their part.
But the self-congratulation was short-lived. A second wave of deadly infections has hit the island state and restrictions are being reintroduced. A warning for countries like Australia that have so far done well to control the outbreak. Here, growing calls for more sustainable rules like those in South Australia, where social gatherings of up to 10 people are allowed. You can still visit people in aged care homes, and you can even sit outside on a park bench without incurring the wrath of police. All, it seems, without increasing infections, at least so far.
For more, I'm joined by infectious diseases physician Peter Collignon. Peter, good evening to you. South Australia is taking a more relaxed approach than most other states. So why do you believe that everyone else should follow suit?
Well, we've had an epidemic curve that we've more than squashed. We've made it go down because of the hand hygiene that everybody's really paying attention to, but also the social and physical distancing people are doing, because this infection is spread by droplets, in other words, coughing, sneezing, but more importantly, when we touch surfaces and get that on our hand. And our curve is looking, in fact, better than New Zealand, which actually had a much tougher approach about a complete lockdown. And so I'm not sure that a complete lockdown achieves a lot more than what we've done with quite major restrictions we've already put in place. And so when I look at all the different restrictions around, particularly in Victoria and New South Wales, where you can't even sit on a park bench or you can't go for a drive in your car, I can't actually see, if you keep 2 metres away from everybody else and they keep 2 metres away from you, how you're either going to give this infection to anyone or get it if you haven't got any symptoms.
Can I ask you about schools? Because you say that they should reopen next term, but how do we know that kids aren't carrying and spreading the virus without showing symptoms?
What we do know about children is that they don't get it very often if they're under the age of 15, and even more rarely do they get serious complications. So children themselves, even if they get the infection, show little effect.
Now, can they spread it without showing it? That's what I'm worried about.
Well, they probably can, because adults can do that as well. Yeah. But the problem is, if we don't restart schools this next term, when it's still autumn, we are really probably saying schools are going to be closed for 6 months till October. Now, that has a lot of other repercussions, because winter is going to be more dangerous than autumn. Winter is where you get more respiratory infections, and including coronavirus.
Can I ask you very super quickly then, how can we be sure that winding these restrictions back won't result in another outbreak?
Well, I don't think we should stop all our restrictions. What we should think about changing is the restrictions that don't even make biological sense, like sitting on a park bench or driving in your car with family members. So I'm all for continuing restrictions, but not restrictions that seem disproportionate to the amount of spread we have in Australia.
Peter Collignon, lovely to talk to you as always. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Now, it is great that new daily infection rate is going in the right direction, but there's another number we want to have a look at tonight, and there's been a breakthrough. Angela Cox has been looking at the recovery rate and joins us now.
Michael, of the 6,357 people who've contracted COVID-19 in Australia, more than half have fully recovered. Let's look at a few curves now. This first line, that's our daily infection rate, the number of new cases. You can see it's steadily declining. Now, look at this purple line. That's the number of Australians with an active case of COVID-19. You can see there was a big drop around the 6th of April and it continues to fall slowly. Now, look at this green line. It's the number of people who have fully recovered, and that figure is on the rise. And the important day, Good Friday, that's when we started seeing more recoveries than active cases. Not out of the woods, but we're heading in the right direction.
We have brought back infectious diseases physician Sanjaya Senanayake to answer your concerns live. It's like doctor is in the house, so thank you. I'm going to start off, Sanjaya, with one from Julie. She wants to know whether 1.5 metre distancing is enough. She's heard we need 8 metres.
Yeah, hi, Mel. So there was a study that came out in the Journal of the Association of the American Medical Association, which suggested that when people cough and sneeze, you can get this droplet gas cloud dispersing up to 8 metres away. However, if that whole gas cloud were infectious, we would be seeing a lot more cases of COVID-19, not just in the community, but especially in the healthcare setting, and we're not. So what is more likely is that the larger, more infectious droplets are still falling that 1 to 1.5 metres, and the droplets or gas cloud beyond that has viruses in insufficient numbers to infect people.
Now, Michelle wants to know, Sanjay, if we should have heavier restrictions during the winter months.
Yes, so as Game of Thrones says, winter is coming, and winter is a big factor and a big uncertainty with the Southern Hemisphere. So we know in winter that certain viruses like influenza are more prevalent for 2 reasons. One, because people want to congregate together in warmer locations, and hopefully with our social distancing policies, we've removed that factor to some extent, but there's also a change in humidity in winter which we can't remove. So I think we have to be cautious for winter, but the restrictions we have in place at the moment, if they are observed, should be sufficient.
All right. Nicola asks how COVID-19 is affecting asthmatics, in particular children. Are they suffering with more severe symptoms?
Okay, we certainly know that people, adults with chronic lung disease, are more prone to getting a severe episode of COVID-19, but we still haven't got that data in children. So all I can say at the moment is if you look at a Chinese cohort of just over 2,000 children, only 5% had severe illness and 0.6% had a critical illness. And of 960 odd deaths in a Chinese cohort, only 1 was in a child. And if you look at 123 American cases, only 2% required hospitalisation, none needed intensive care, and none died. So overall, children seem to do quite well.
All right, that's a really good one to clear up. Now, Melanie asks this one, Sanjaya. They are introducing rapid testing for the elderly. Is that because you have a better chance of recovering if you're diagnosed quickly?
Yes, so the 2 risk factors for a bad outcome with COVID-19 are being older and having chronic medical conditions. And if you go to a nursing home, you've got older people with chronic medical conditions who are living close together. And we know from the US experience that when COVID-19 enters a nursing home, it spreads like wildfire. And also the staff in nursing homes who work in other healthcare facilities have spread it to other nursing homes. So that being the case, it can also spill over into hospitals and have implications in terms of bed use and intensive care use. So it is really important for nursing homes to nip outbreaks in the bud by identifying those outbreaks early, to look after those people and stopping spread into hospitals and intensive care units.
All right, can I sneak one more in before we go to the break? Angie wants to know when we'll get tests that tell us if we have antibodies, so we know whether we've had it and we've recovered.
So we've talked about the rapid point of care tests, which actually refer to antibody tests. There are 19 of them, 17 coming from China, 2 from the US, but unfortunately a number of them have been unreliable when tested in other countries. Now, some hospitals with major reference laboratories have developed their own more traditional antibody tests, so they are available with limited testing. And I believe that a German company who normally does reliable antibody testing is their tests are being assessed by some laboratories here, but they haven't been approved by the TGA yet.
All right, excellent there again, Sanjaya, thank you. And a brief question from Michael in the studio. How big a fan of the goodies were you, Sanjaya?
Oh, look, I loved the goodies, Michael. I grew up with them, and I used to come home from school and look forward to it and have dinner in front of the TV.
Like all of us.